Hello, everyone, and welcome to a webinar about using Listenwise for remote learning with elementary grades. I am your presenter today. I'm Monica Brady-Meyerov. I'm the founder and CEO of Listenwise, and I just want to say a quick hi on the video before I turn it off and rely on you all to participate in the chat box. I want to hear where you're from, what you teach, and questions that you may have, because I really want this time with you today to function as much as an office hours as it is as a webinar. So I'm looking to hear from you and answer your questions as much as I am going to be giving you some tips and pointers about how to use Listenwise easily with your elementary students and giving you some ways and tips we've learned from teachers using it today. So love to hear where you're from and what grades you teach. And if you have any particular questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So we're going to go through how to access Listenwise in a remote setting, how to use it with your students, and then I just really want to rely on your questions and help you with what you need. So first of all, the nuts and bolts of Listenwise. So Listenwise is a fully digital listening skills building curriculum or resources with a collection of more than 2,000 podcasts. Many of them are from NPR, but in our newly built elementary collection, we have a great collection from podcasters who are making audio specifically for children in the age ranges of 2nd through 5th grades. So you're going to find some really entertaining and interesting audio for your students, and we're going to hear a little bit of that today. And then we create teaching resources around the audio that are standards aligned and can be assigned digitally. If you haven't done so already, sign up for free during the school closures. And Listenwise, by the way, is always free for teachers. You can get all of the current events audio and listening discussion questions for free. So even during a time that does not have this special offer for the school closures, you can use, there's a lot of resources on Listenwise that you can use for free. I don't want to get into how to set up your classes and walk you through that, because I know you can take a moment to either look at these links to these videos, which we'll be providing to you, both a video of this webinar as well as this presentation, so you can go into these links and see how you create classes, enroll students, assign quizzes. Essentially, Listenwise is designed to be teacher-led, so it's best for you to take a few moments to roster your class, either importing it from Google Classroom or creating a class code and sharing it with your students so that you can get the full experience of what Listenwise can do. Hello and welcome to Carolyn from St. Louis, Missouri, and a school librarian teaching some technology classes. Great to have you. Others chime in. Where are you? Up, and we've got someone from Chico, California. Great. So first, a word about the technology too. Listenwise can be used on any one of these devices, and I want to focus a minute on the mobile device, because in a remote learning situation, I know that many students are struggling with connectivity, not having a desktop or laptop in their homes, and but many do have a smartphone. So Listenwise is very easy to use and has a great student experience on your mobile device. Another word about easy integration and sign-on, it's Google Classroom. I'm wondering how many of you use that, because it's just, we've created a really easy experience to use single sign-on, import rostering, and assignment sharing all through the Google platform. All right, now how to use Listenwise in a remote setting. These are going to be some practical strategies for teaching. So the first thing I want to tell you about is a really quick start idea. You can bypass signing up your students and making classes and all of that. If you really just want to get right to finding a great story and hooking into some student engagement, you can use this share audio link. So I'm going to show you what that is in a moment, but what it does is you can just copy this link and share it out via your email or your class web page, and students can click on it and automatically hear the story. They won't see all the supports with it, but they will at least get an excellent listening experience. I'm going to go over to the website now and focus a little bit on searching, because one of the easiest ways for you to get going with Listenwise is to find the subjects and the topics that you think your students will be interested in. So I'm right now on the current events page, which you can scroll through and look at the stories to see what might be interesting to your students. And I want to point out that a couple things for the elementary students in particular are weird news, which I'll go into in a moment, and the fact that we have quizzes on our Wednesday stories. So all of our Wednesday stories have a quiz attached to them. And that allows you to easily administer it to your students online, which I'll show you. But it also is typically a much lower Lexile level story to listen to. All right, so what I'm going to do is just put my cursor in the search bar and hit return to bring up this advanced search bar and show you how you can screen down your search by subject, Lexile audio measure, grade level, and type of resource. I want to go back to the Lexile audio measure. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Lexile text measure. Well, we are the first to offer this Lexile audio measure that allows you to understand what is the level of difficulty and complexity of an audio passage. So this is based on a scientifically developed scale. It is made by Metametrics, the same people who brought you Lexile text level, and it is on the same scale. So eventually you'll be able to see where your students fall on a listening level as well as a reading level. But that's coming later. Right now, what we have is this way to look at the audio and decide what level story you want for your students. So I know we've got someone in here as 3rd through 5th grade. So if you look at this grade level band, 945 through 1250 is about what the average 4th grader can understand while using it on our platform with the support that we have. So what I would do is go back over here and might say, now, hold on, I made that too high. Let me just look at that number again and say 945 to 1250. So I can make it this specific. I can say 945 to 1250, and that's the screen I want to use. And I only want to find elementary stories, and I'm going to look in both lessons and quizzes. Now, I'm not going to put a topic in there. I just want to see what comes up. Okay, so some interesting things like students helping neighbors. That might be interesting. My students might be interested in the pandemic's impact on the environment. These are all Lexile level stories that are in the range of the 4th grade. Now, when I go into a story, you'll see the Lexile audio level is there. You can click on it as well. Actually, click on that question mark again, and it will bring up that same pop-up that explains more about the level. And you can see that it is has a listening comprehension, a text with it. Every story has an automatic transcript that comes along with the audio so that students can listen and read at the same time. This is definitely a literacy support, something that's documented by a lot of research, that especially when kids are learning how to read, hearing something and watching it and reading it at the same time helps with comprehension. So let me just play a little bit of that for you to hear.
With fewer cars on the roads and planes in the sky, the global slowdown is having a big effect on the environment. Carbon emissions are dropping, but by how much?
So you can see that the audio and the text remain connected with each other. And you can also slow down the audio by 20%. So what you're able to do here is just give students that ability to jump around in the text or the audio and read along as they can. The other thing I want you to remember is that especially in the younger grades, the research shows that students can listen to audio that is 2 to 3 grade levels higher than they can read, which is why also when you look at a story like this and you think, okay, if you look at the Lexile listening level on the story, let's look at student volunteers helping the elderly. That is a 990, and you think, well, is that a little higher than my student who's reading at a 720? And I would say that's okay because students can listen at a higher level than they can read. And plus, those scales of reading and listening are not exactly correlated to each other. We will eventually be adding the ability for you to have your students take quizzes and be able to track their listening progress. But right now, our first step is using this audio Lexile measure. All right, so let's go back here and say, I want to look up a story about animal superpowers. Actually, I realize I need to go back. Every time you do a search, it remembers what you did previously, and for that reason, sometimes you have to go back and reset your search categories to find the story that you want. And actually, before I jump into that one, I'm going to go to something even easier, because really, what I really want to do today is show you how simple it is for you to be able to quickly assign a story. And one of the easiest things to do is use one of these weird news stories. These stories are only 30 seconds long, and they are focused on vocabulary words. So this is the vocabulary words are visualize and residence. I know that in the remote learning situation, I'd be curious to hear from you in the chat box as well about how much you're asked to cover, or whether you're asked to cover new content or new information, or you're being asked to do reviews and keep focus more on enrichment. Well, if enrichment and engaging activities are what you're looking for, these weird news stories are excellent because they are interesting, entertaining, short, and they give you the opportunity to focus on a couple of vocabulary words. I'm going to play this story in its entirety, and then we're going to look at the assignment resources that come with the story.
Good morning, I'm Noelle King. We know we're supposed to stay at least 6 feet apart from each other to prevent the spread of COVID-19, but it can be hard to visualize how far 6 feet is exactly. We've been told the length of a car, a large couch, a dining room table. Leon County, Florida came up with its own device. The county advised residents on social media to keep at least one large alligator length apart from one another. Florida will be Florida.
All right, so it's fun, it's entertaining, it's something that should give the students a little laugh. And then in the listening comprehension questions and discussion theme questions, we focus on one of those vocabulary words. How did a Florida county government help residents understand how far apart they should stay from each other? And what are some other ways to help people visualize 6 feet? So it's a way to get that vocabulary word in practice. And there are ways you can assign this. So one way would be to share the audio, as I showed you in the slide deck. This has the pop-up with the link that you can use. Now that does not include the transcript again, but you can easily share the link to Google Classroom or copy and paste it. Or you could create an assignment. Now this assignment process is on all of the stories, whether they're current events or lessons, and they vary in length depending on whether it's a current event or a lesson. In this one, it's pretty short because we're looking at the current event, but what it does is automatically populates your questions here. And you could say, I'm not going to go to the theme question. I'm not interested in having kids write a little bit more about that. I just want to get them to understand the vocabulary word. And I might even say in my instructions, I'll say, use the vocab word in context. So it could be some, and you can also change this overview too, so that you can make it very clear what it is the students need to be doing. So as I said, the platform is designed to be assigned, make the assignments by the teachers. However, when a student gets into their own account, they do have the ability to browse and listen to any story they'd like. So I know I just got a question on that, and it's a good question. So there is student agency in choosing stories. And when you go on and set up your class as an elementary school class, make sure you check elementary. That way, the students will only be able to see the stories that we've marked as elementary. You know, there's nothing on here that is inappropriate for students, but I know that for younger students, there are things that might feel scary or challenging or complicated. So for that reason, we have been marking them as elementary to make sure that you can direct your students to have some agency in what they'd like to listen to, but also not, not come across things that would be too mature for them. All right, so going back to the lessons, now that we've kind of had a quick look at a few ways to assign in the current events, I want to go specifically to a lesson, because lessons are more resourced, and they, animal superpowers, I love this one. They're more well-resourced. They have quizzes, many of them do, and they have longer amounts they have more listening discussion questions, listening comprehension questions, as well as a teacher's guide, and in this case, a quiz. On our elementary collection, which is in beta, which just means we have a limited number, we have probably 25 lessons so far, and by back to school, we'll be up to about 100. But right now, every elementary lesson has a quiz, a multiple choice online listening quiz that's auto-scored that you can assign. It's another super easy way to use the platform. All right, so let me just walk you through what a lesson plan has. First, it's got this great audio. Now I'm going to play a little bit of this because this is a great example of some of the new audio on our platform that's made especially for young people. It's not an NPR story that's, that we have put teaching resources around for middle or high school. It is a story written by a podcast group that is targeting young people. And you can tell by the way it sounds.
Hello there, super listeners, and welcome to the Earth Rangers podcast. For this episode, I've done a ton of research about superpowered animals, and the thing that surprised me most was how many animals actually have them. For instance,
all right, so you can see it's a lot more lively. It's got a couple of voices. It's written at a lower lexile level for students and their lower listening lexile level as well. So you'll see in our elementary collection, it is a low audio, lexile audio measure. So you can take this story and look at the assignment resources, which, as I said, every story has listening comprehension questions, discussion themes, but in a lesson we go deeper, we go further, providing vocabulary and listening organizers. Every story in the lesson collection has this listening organizer called a language identification organizer. What's great about this is that it helps students follow along with their listening. It's a metacognitive strategy to keep you focused. So this could be easy for a student to just complete online as they're listening so they can keep track of where they are. Another type of organizer, we have several different types. This is the T-chart. We have some fill in the blanks. We have some fact question responses. All of these can be assigned online. The teacher's guide is an out-of-the-box lesson plan for you, explaining what you could do before the listening, activating prior knowledge, how exactly to introduce the story, what you can do during the story, again, assigning these listening organizers, and how to reflect on the story afterwards. And the other really important thing I know there's a librarian on the call and you're all teaching literacy at this age, right? So this paired text is a great way to help them think about podcast as a text and written text and being able to read something, listen to something, and then synthesize thoughts about it. So we link off to another resource that has a story about a similar subject. Then when you come back to Listenwise, you could see here, ask your students to note and discuss information learned from the article that adds to what they learned from the audio story. And then you have the quiz. This just gives you a quick preview of the quiz, but I'd rather show it to you up here where you click on the Assign a Quiz bar. You can assign the quiz with or without the transcript. I'm going to keep it with because I think at this early age when kids are still developing their reading, it's a great way to practice your reading while you're listening. So in a quiz, we have created these quizzes to be based on 8 strands of listening, including being able to identify the main point, inferencing, vocabulary, and context. And it's all multiple choice and auto scored. So I'm going to show you what that means. I'm just going to take a guess here. Taste, I'm going to take a wild guess. What is the word wound? I'm going to try to get one right because I know what the word wound means. I'm going to take a wild guess. Okay, now I'm ready to submit the quiz. And what's great about it, especially again in a remote setting, is that the students can see automatically how well they've done. And they see what they got right and what they got wrong. They also have the ability to go back up here and listen again. So they can go back and check and see what was it that they misheard or misunderstood. You also have the ability to reset the quiz results and have them take it again. And you can monitor their quizzing results right here in your classes. I'll just go to a class summary report because I have some data in here from students who've taken quizzes. So you can see here that overall, my students are struggling most with identifying the main idea and making inferences in their listening. And I might want to focus on that in my instruction. I can also go into a student and see specifically how well they've done on quizzes, as well as even seeing what they got right and wrong and why. So that this really helps inform me where their misconceptions are, and helps target the instruction I want to provide to the student. So it is a great way, again, when you're not in front of the classroom, and I know you all are just, it's a Herculean effort that's going on right now, and I thank you all very much and admire you for everything you're doing for our students. And I know it's so hard not to see what students are doing, not being able to be right there in the moment with them, helping them, and with what they are missing or see or want to understand. It's really hard. So being able to go into your assignments and look at that is one way that you can track what they're doing. So if I'm going to go here to, let me go to this other story called Australian Animals and show you another way that you can make the assignment. I showed you how to quickly make a quiz assignment and then check to see how the students did. Now let's make a written assignment. This is create a written assignment, and it's going to be relying on the assignment resources tab that I showed you earlier. All right. So in this case, it's a 5-step process because lessons are more well-resourced than the current events. And I'm just going to call this a test, and it will show a couple of things are already checked. It's going to allow them to see the transcript and the text up toolbar, save and continue. Here's where I get to choose the listening organizer. As I said, I really like this listening identification organizer as it helps students keep track as they're listening to the story. The listening discussion questions and the comprehension questions are preloaded. And you can add why. You can say, you can add a question if you want. You can add words, you can delete questions. I'm going to take off these and I'm going to save and go to the next step. It's just highly flexible. You could even draw a picture or talk to your parents about it, whatever you want to, whatever thing you want them to be doing after this. And then that paired text article is there for you to assign as well. If you feel like you want them to focus on some reading after they're listening, then you're ready to go to the next step. Your instructions are here, and you're able to assign it to either one student or multiple students if you've given supports that are, let's say, for struggling readers or English language learners, or you can select all your students, make it due in a week, and you've now made the assignment. Now again, for you to give visibility on this, you would want to go to the assignments page. And I'm just going to jump to one that I have some data in to show you. At the top of the page, you're looking at what the teacher sees, what you would see, and you'd be able to click on See Responses and get a sense of who's started the assignment, who's completed it, and whether or not you've given feedback. And then what you see below that is the student preview. Now, one thing I want to point out here that's key is this toolbar that only is visible in the student preview. What this allows you to do is highlight any word and have it read out loud, defined in English and defined in Spanish.
Remember.
So again, for struggling readers or English language learners, this can be a huge support, especially in a remote setting. So remember to point that out to them. We only have Spanish at the moment. How do they see their feedback? That's a great question. And I'm going to go back to the presentation to show you a few screenshots of the feedback. Let me just present and get back to this, because when you write your feedback at the bottom of the page, the student will see it. Okay, providing feedback. So this is what it looks like when a student completes the listening discussion questions or the listening comprehension questions. You get a box in the bottom that gives your feedback. So the teacher has provided this feedback and asked her to do more to revise it. They send it back to the student. It pops up in their browser. and then they are able to make the revisions based on that feedback. This is how the student sees the feedback, right up here at the top. So the teacher is asked, can you try to answer question 5 in your own words? So the student will try again. This is the second round of feedback. So she tried again because you're able to open up the settings for them to try again, and then writing as much feedback as you'd like in that box. The way you provide feedback is just how I showed you with the C responses. When you go into that, you can write feedback on the bottom. So I'm just going to go back into that feature right here. So if I'm in C responses and I want to go into this student who isn't completed it yet, I scroll to the bottom. Actually, I can't do this, I'm sorry, because I'm in preview. But normally you'd scroll to the bottom and that orange box would be there. So yes, what happens, somebody's asking, and do they get a notification or email, or do they have to log back in? Well, currently we typically send an email notification to the students that they have feedback received. However, because of the remote learning with the increase of usage we've had, and many schools and districts block notifications directly to students' emails, we were running into some major technical problems. So I'm sorry to say at the moment we had to disable that feature, so they would have to log back into Listenwise to see it. We are working on fixing that so that we can get that back into place, because typically they do see that feedback. And Carolyn's also asking, are the assignment tools part of the free teacher account? And she wants to share with teachers, wants to make sure you know what you can use. Great question. The assignment feature tools are not part of the teacher account. What is the free teacher account? They are part of premium. What is part of free is listening, the audio story. I'm just going to show you to give you a sense of it. So if I were to hide this transcript, which you can do, whoops, I jumped out of it by mistake. So as with a free account, you have the ability to listen to the audio, have the story synopsis, and use the listening comprehension questions and the discussion theme questions. You also have the ability to share the audio with that button directly with your students. They will not have the transcript, but the assignment features are part of premium. Any other questions? I've gone over a couple of quick and easy ways to use Listenwise and some deeper ways to go in and give feedback. Again, I would really point you to focusing on searching for the elementary school curriculum, or not curriculum, but the elementary set of resources that we've compiled by doing a search based on that, so that you can get stories that are most going to interest your students. And if I take off current event, I'm just going to show you a couple of more, because we've really got some great ones around books that they're reading, environmental issues, garbage in the sea, pollination, science. We're really going for highly interesting stories that students are going to want to listen to. And what we've been hearing from users right now at this time is that this is one of the most favorite activities that their students do. I had one teacher write just recently say whenever they assign a Listenwise assignment, 100% of the students do it, because it is a break from looking at the screen. You don't have to show the transcript. You can just ask them to listen and write a response or discuss it with you at your morning meeting time that you might be able to have on Zoom or not. But that's just, it's just an easy, fun activity. I have another question about what grade range. When I say elementary audio, what grade range? Yeah, we're looking at 2nd through 5th grade. So that would be the age range for us, is 2nd graders through 5th grade. We have middle and high school stories too, but what we're really trying to target is that age range of 2nd through 5th. I hope that helps. Great. Well, if there are no more questions, I am going to thank you all very, very much for coming. I hope you've learned some fun and easy ways to use Listenwise with your students. And we're here to help you and happy to assist in any way that we can. Thank you all very, very much for coming.